Hi guys, KH Cloud here. This video is going to be a bit different from the videos that we've had so far. The primary point of this video is actually to kind of start a dialogue and a discussion around this topic. And the topic is a controversial one in games. It's, in video gaming in general, I should say. It's games as a service. So for a while now there's been a thing called software as a service. If you don't know what that means, it means that you have a piece of software that you don't buy outright. You don't spend, $400, $500 on it, or $50 or $10, whatever. You pay $10 a month, and the company gives you that software, and you get it, updated and maintained and all that kind of stuff for like $10 a month, and usually there's X number of users for that price, and so on and so forth. It's mostly around enterprise stuff, but you've seen it in things like Office 365, which is more for consumers. So the game industry has seen this, and they've seen one part of it that's particularly attractive to them, and that's the overall revenue. The revenue for software as a service is very, very high. There are a lot of jobs out there, I can tell you from first-hand experience, there's a lot of jobs out there in software as a service type stuff. So that tells you that they're making a lot of money in it and it's growing. So there was a rumor recently that Square Enix is going to be doing some more games as a service stuff. You can also call this GaaS, but for mostly comedic reasons I'm going to avoid doing that because it's very funny to call it GaaS. I mostly just kind of, like Square Enix is doing it now, or they're planning on doing it. There's rumors that Ubisoft is planning on doing it. Microsoft and EA have kind of dabbled a bit with EA Access and Microsoft's Game Pass, I think is what it's called. But I expect to see this evolve greatly. And I kind of wanted to go over what I think are some of the pros and cons of this, and then kind of discuss with you guys in the comments really how you feel about it. And I'm coming at this from two perspectives. I'm coming at this from the perspective of a consumer and the perspective of someone who's worked in the game industry and wants to continue working in the game industry. Also work in the software development industry, so I know a bit from the software as a service side as well. All the pros and cons written on my handy-dandy tablet, which no one buys anymore. They're actually kind of useful. Side note. So, some of the pros. There are more jobs for the developers. That's pretty huge right now because right now there aren't many game development jobs, and there's a lot of people who want to get into game development, and there's not a lot of positions. And that which exists seems to be a lot of senior level positions, which is kind of humorous. Because people need to get hired at lower level positions in order to get the experience to go to senior level positions. But c'est la vie. The more jobs, though, is a critical part of this, because when you have games as a service, that means that you have a guarantee revenue of X amount a month. And that allows you to kind of know really kind of where you can shift your resources and stuff. And also allows you to keep people on. One of the biggest things with the game industry is typically people are hired for the period of development, or for a contract. I mean, it can vary greatly. There's a lot of, 6-month QA contracts because people come in, say you're testing Madden, right? You come in for like the last 6 months of development. After that, you're laid off because your contract ends or whatever, collect unemployment, and then, 6 months later, you go in and you get hired again to be the QA for Madden or whatever the game is, I'm just using Madden because it's a game that comes out every year, it's very consistent, and it's actually going to be an example a lot in this. Because it's where games as a service is kind of perfectly tailored to. When you have something like games as a service, what you can do instead is just keep those people on, because now you have the money to keep them on, and you constantly need to test. You don't need to test just before release. You need to test year-round. You have new features coming in. You have problems with the service. You have, like the server going down, whatever, that kind of stuff. You need to have people test and maintain that. So that leads to consistent work. Another pro is higher revenue. I mentioned that kind of before, but games as a service would bring in a lot of revenue for the game industry as a whole. And that more revenue might enable bigger companies to take more risk in more familiar games. So, not necessarily more risk with new IPs, although that's another aspect depending on how they decide to go on it, but we'll get into that later. What I mean is more like, if they have a feature that they want to try in Madden, but it costs a lot of money to develop, they now have a consistent revenue coming in that they can then go, aha, we have the money to put aside to develop this feature and put it out there and see how the fans react. Another aspect of the games as a service is if the fans react negatively, you get rid of the feature. you scale back, you do whatever you can do, so that you don't have to have a situation where you release a game one year and then the fans are like, oh, I don't like that, sir. I don't like that at all. Well, we're not buying that this year, or we're returning it in droves, or whatever, and all that kind of stuff. Instead, you just have, oh, you don't like that feature? Okay, well, you know what, guys? We're working on it. We're improving it for you, so on and so forth, like you see in a lot of MMOs. Another pro is less reliance on initial sales for a game's overall success. So right now, when a game comes out, you know, that first month or that first week is really, really important to the studio. It tells them really how much hype was there beforehand and how much they should continue to invest in the series. And a lot of times, if the first month is bad, you need a really good second, third, fourth month to even get considered for a sequel. When you have something like games as a service, there are no initial first month sales. So that enables you to kind of not have to worry necessarily about when you release a new feature, you release a new service pack, whatever you want to call it, you know, a new expansion pack. You don't have to worry nearly as much about the initial sales of that, because there are none. You don't have to worry about, like, oh man, like, you know, we hit the market at the wrong time. Nope, don't have to worry about that because people are paying for it monthly. Another thing, and I kind of alluded to it before, is that this is ideal for series with annual releases. And also online games. So, Madden, FIFA, MLB The Show, NBA, most of the sports games, all of those, in my opinion, they benefit a lot from going into the games as a service. And it kind of benefits the consumer a lot, too. Mostly because you don't have to transfer over all your saves files. A lot of them now allow you to save out in the cloud. But even then, I think there's limits on the amount of cloud storage that you have, so you're not, you know, guaranteed that you're going to have that save over for you. But, you know, things like roster updates, those are great. You just have them as part of the games as a service thing. You just, oh, yep, there's a new roster update. Here's the free roster pack, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to have that case where, I've noticed this now in Madden, MLB The Show, NBA, and it's just a fact of how the current development cycle is. When someone picks up late, like the end of last year, Andrew Benintendi, Aaron Judge, they came in late, they kind of did pretty well for themselves, and now the MLB The Show guys kind of have to rely on, like, putting in those characters, those players, but not really having the time to focus on making them as good as the typical characters that you get in there. So you can end up with a case where, like, your best hitter, in my opinion, for the Red Sox, at the end of last year, their best hitter was Andrew Benintendi. And if you were playing MLB The Show, you have this guy that was very generic, with a very generic batting stance, and, like, kind of somewhat generic stats, because people were just kind of rushing to make sure that the guy was out for you. When you have a games as a service thing, they can spend a little bit more money and resources to make sure that what you get is actually the same quality that what you typically expect. Another thing that I think that could benefit is especially in a case like MLB The Show, is maybe it allows them to actually put the full minor league rosters in there. Because right now, if you go and play, like, me personally, if I'm doing a franchise for the Red Sox, if I'm playing out of the park baseball, I can go in and make sure I keep Devers and trade other pieces or whatever to kind of build the team. If I'm playing MLB The Show, I don't even have Devers, so I don't have the option to trade him. And all of a sudden my team is less equipped than they are in reality in the game because they don't really necessarily have the time and resources to develop into that. I think they have the license though. I'm not entirely sure, but again, all that stuff, you can kind of more enable that path when you get into games. Another pro is something that's kind of hinted into Microsoft Games Pass, even PlayStation Plus a bit, and EA Access and all that kind of stuff. There's a pretty good chance that publishers are going to have you pay for one service that provides the games as a service for multiple titles. So you might have like an Activision pack, which includes Destiny and Call of Duty and Guitar Hero. All of those are ideal for a games as a service situation. The Rock Band Guitar Hero phase would probably still be around if they actually had the ability to go as a games as a service rather than having releases each year to supply the revenue that they needed. And I'm sure they're thinking about that right now, kind of. They've kind of hinted at it a bit with Rock Band and Guitar Hero Live. So you might see a case like, I talked with my friend the other day, you might see a case where like PlayStation Plus comes with a Platinum package, which includes the typical PlayStation Plus stuff, but also all the Season Pass DLC that you get for all the Uncharted games or the God of War, whatever exclusive Sony titles they have. Maybe it includes those titles, who knows? I mean, it depends. Right now, it wouldn't, but I think in the future, it's possibly pretty likely that it would include those titles. Along similar lines, as another pro, this may spell the end of Season Passes and overpriced DLC. In the sense that you won't necessarily need to sell somebody on that $50 DLC, you know, or $50 season pass that they give people at the register, when instead you're promising them, oh no, you know, you pay this $5 a month or this $10 a month or whatever it is, and we're going to deliver that content to you for free, you know, and we're going to deliver it at regular intervals. So, you know, every 3 months, here's a new package of DLC related stuff. Every month, maybe here's a free map or something that's included with it. And obviously, it's not really free because you're paying for it, but again, that's generally how people sell stuff anyways on services. Another pro, likely will lead to more mature content. We see this with Netflix and with HBO and stuff like that, is when you can know that the person who's paying in has a credit card, has all that kind of information where you know they're an adult, and you're not regulated by the FCC because you're not releasing this into the open airways or whatever. You're not releasing this onto basic cable, however, whatever they police. I'm not even sure exactly what they police. But you see with satellite radio as well. You can deliver more mature content when it's separated out like this. And I think that that'll actually happen with games as a service as well. They might be able to push a little bit more mature content. Because the primary reason why is you might go like, well, right now you're paying for the game, so why would this change anything? The primary reason why is because if they can know that they can make revenue without needing you to go into a Walmart and buy it, then they can deliver content that would typically be rated as adult only and therefore not featured on a Walmart store shelf because they don't care about that. They don't need that anymore. That could be both good and bad. But I consider it more of a pro because it gives more, you know, availability to the designers. There is a potential for more experimentation overall. Because again, you have that money coming in, you have less reliance on initial sales, you have that steady kind of income. And that can enable you as a publisher to maybe experiment more with some things. Not just in the game, but with new IPs. I think that's definitely another pro with this. Okay. So now that all the pros are out of the way, let's get into the cons. And there are plenty of cons, trust me. One of them is subscription overload. We already kind of have that. If you want to watch all of your favorite shows right now, you need to pay for HBO Go. You need to pay for Netflix. You need to pay for Amazon Prime. And you need to pay for Hulu. At a bare minimum. You might also want to pay for PlayStation Vue. Depends. Maybe you replace PlayStation Vue or, you know, Sling TV or whatever other service that you have for Hulu or whatever. But again, you're looking at a minimum of like 4 subscription services to get everything that you want to watch. That might come for games as well. you might need 4, 5, 6 subscription services to play all the games you want to play, and that's not a good thing. Another thing, and this is kind of more of a personal point, but this might apply to some of you out there as well, I don't play all of my games to the end. I play a lot of the games for like an hour or so, and then I'll leave it alone for like a couple weeks, and then come back to it and play it for another couple of hours. Come back for it, play it maybe for like a whole week. I play it like, 10 hours like I'm doing right now with MLB The Show. Maybe that happens. But if you have to pay a subscription every month, that might lead to you being like, well, I'm paying for this and I haven't played it. And maybe I need to play it, because otherwise I'm not really getting the full value from it. But I don't really want to play that right now. That's definitely going to be an issue. That's definitely an issue coming along the lines. And I don't really know if Games as a Service really has an ability to address that issue. The multiple pack-in, maybe, but even then, what if I don't want to play any of Square Enix's games that month? Or what if I don't want to play any of Activision's games or 2K's or whatever? I'm kind of stuck. It possibly could be the end of all-in-one releases. We already kind of see that a bit with DLC, but this will probably make it worse, where like you don't get that full title, you just get part of a title with the promise of more coming later. Or again, you're not able to get the title at all in the store, and you have to just play online or you just have to pay online in order to get it. Those are all very much possibilities, and not a good thing. Likely a more buggy release. We've seen this a bit lately because of how ubiquitous broadband is. We see a lot of games that come out with bugs in them because they know that they can ship a day one patch to fix stuff. Now, there are positives and negatives to that in and of itself, but as a consumer, I don't like to receive buggy titles. I'm sure you don't either. And in general, they do the day one patch stuff now so that they can get the gold out first if they know that there's the bugs in there or bugs that they can fix. But this, it'll probably be worse. Like, with Games as a Service, it'll probably end up being worse. Like, the release will probably have more bugs and more, missing content. Think No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky at release, totally not worth $60. It was totally an early access game. Now, yeah, it's getting there, and it's going to get more and more content as it's coming. But that, with a subscription tied to it, is the future with Games as a Service. There will likely be a higher overall cost to the consumer. And this will probably make it harder for indie games to have as great as an impact as they're having now. Indie games will probably have to rely on mobile, like the phone that I'm recording this off now, or tablet games, or, stuff like that, browser games. But consoles? I mean, we've seen a lot of really good indie games on consoles lately. This could hurt them, because you don't have the money to spend to buy those anymore, because you're spending all the money on all your AAA games that you want to play because you played that title before. That's a perfectly reasonable response. Hey, I've played, Tomb Raider before, and I like Tomb Raider, so I know I'm going to like Fall of the Tomb Raider. So yeah, let's pay for that subscription, versus like, oh man, that game looks good, but it's $15, and with all these other subscriptions, I just don't have the money for that right now. That's definitely going to happen. And it could even be worse if the stuff I mentioned with PlayStation Plus before is one of the pros. That also could lead to maybe PlayStation doesn't pack in any indie games with PlayStation Plus anymore. And then for those indie games don't really get the exposure that they get right now off of PlayStation Plus. Another problem is somewhat personal now too. Games, they'll lose, the library will go away if you lose internet or cash flow. So like if you go unemployed for a bit, all those games you have that actually would be, a help when you're unemployed to keep you like from just jumping off of a bridge, those are going away. They're all gone because you can't afford them anymore. And you can't put the games over food. You can't. So then you have to choose, well, food. I have to eat. And that'll likely be a dilemma a lot of people face. And another thing with the internet, I live in the Northeast of the United States. And the northeast of the United States is unlike the rest of the United States in the fact that the infrastructure is old. Really old. Currently, our cable line comes from a different area than our power. Our power goes out to the north, the cable line goes out to the south. If someone hits a pole of the south, internet gone. Power's still on. I'll still want to play games. I can't. The internet's gone. That happens in a lot of places, especially in the Northeast. And the Northeast isn't putting all their stuff underground yet. That's going to take a while. Just saying. It costs a lot of money. And that's just in the United States. That's where it's bad in the United States. Outside of the United States, in India, in Brazil, in South Africa, where people, you know, they're getting developed now. It's becoming a developed area. There's a lot of people there that want to play. Sorry, you can't. Your internet's out. Ooh. It's like, well, we hit our data cap. Again, sorry. Like, that's not good. And maybe they'll find some way to address that, but I'm guessing the way to address it overall will be, well, you can buy, you know, 8/10 of the game in the store on a disc if you're living in Brazil and India, but those 2/10, I'm sorry, you know, it's only in the North America market right now. Yeah, I don't think people are going to like that very much. By the way, already exists, kind of. It probably still won't kill microtransactions. We'll probably still see those. You know, that was one of the things that I was thinking to myself is, like, I play MLB The Show. I play Madden. I played Ultimate Team of Madden, and I can't remember the name of it on MLB The Show, but it's a similar thing. Now, you can go and get those card packs for free as you work at it and stuff, and I do that because I don't have the money for it right now. But in a situation where I was paying for those games, I could see myself right now, if if I had the money, yeah, sure, I'll go and spend like a couple dollars and get a card pack. If I'm paying a subscription for that, even if it's $5 a month, which would equal out to $60 over the whole year, I'm still going to be like, I feel like I should get that for free. There's just something about a subscription that makes you feel like that stuff should come for free. I think there's going to be a chance you can have a $5 basic Madden subscription and a $10 Madden Ultimate Team subscription. It's coming. Or maybe it'll be 7 or 8, but still, it's coming for sure. This is another thing. And these last two cons that I have, I might just put them together. What happens in a single-player game when the story comes to an end? And it naturally gets to its end. You're going to feel compelled, if you have this as a service, to continue. Even though there's really no place story-wise to go. Think of an end like Uncharted 4. The Uncharted 4 perfectly kind of ends Nathan Drake's story. You can go in the past, and you go into the past of Nathan Drake's story and go pre-Golden Abyss. I think Golden Abyss might be the first time he did anything. I can't remember. No, it's just the oldest, whatever. Pre-Golden Abyss or pre-Uncharted 1, however you want to go with that, you can go back and do that. But I also feel like, you know, the story in that sense, Nathan Drake's story has kind of come to a close, and I think we should just kind of let him rest naturally and go with other characters from the Uncharted series, because they're going to continue doing Uncharted games. But this presents a problem in a games as a service environment because you have a monetary incentive to continue to pump out new content, which may or may not really fit with the story. The last con is again related to this, but like it makes it harder in that sense to tell a complete story, because the publisher wants you to continue. It wants you to make like a tentpole type thing. You know, where we have the tentpole franchises now, where the movies always end and there's a little thing at the end to help continue. Yeah, sure, the story of the movie is usually complete and kind of nice, but you also know that you haven't gotten the complete story yet. And you're probably never going to get it. And that's the future with games. And we're going to have to rely on indie games for those complete stories, most likely, just like we have to rely on those kind of more indie movies for the complete stories now. So yeah, those are my thoughts, kind of the pros and cons. This is going to be a very long video on games as a service. Please kind of let me know what you guys think below. If you fall on the more pro or the con side, or if you're in the middle like I am. I do think It'll be a long time before Nintendo adopts any games as a service. Just because in general, developers seem to have been against this so far. They're going to continue to be against it, I think, for the most part. And Nintendo is a company where, unlike the other companies, Nintendo's management is made up of developers. A lot of the other companies, not all of them, but a lot of them have financial people at the top. And for financial people, you see software as a service, revenue numbers. You see, and you go, well, games, let's move them over there. That's great. Look at that revenue. But like, if you're a developer, you kind of have some of the reservations that I mentioned. And so I think Nintendo is going to be the last to do this. Nintendo definitely is the one that wants to complete their games. But I think it's coming. It's probably coming for everyone. Money talks. Any of you guys, leave your comments below. I'd like to hear more from you. And yeah, like, share, and subscribe if you like the video. If you want to see me do more of these type of things, I might in the future. I just this is one of those things, it's a topic, that I wanted to get off my chest. And yeah, peace.